So hello and welcome back to another video where I think I lost like an hour and 45 minutes of me speed painting just purely because I'm an idiot. Basically what happened was that I thought I was recording the right screen, but turned out I was recording the wrong one. So yeah, I drew 25 faces and then realized it after I went to take a break, but it is what it is. So let's get into talking about this. If you've been around in the channel for a while, you know that I try to do 100 face challenges, and it was a thought to try and do that again, but here's the thing. Time was not on my side, so when I was sort of just wanting to draw faces in general, because I have a lot of references saved on Pinterest, I was like, well, let me just draw them and see how many I can get done, and then go from there. And if I decided to do a 100 face challenge, then we know that, roughly the time frame for it. So I recorded the first 25 pages, or 25 faces, and then I realized that I'm not doing 100 faces because it's a lot. And the approach to 100 face challenge that I was initially taking just wasn't a good idea for me. I know I've burnt out. I needed an easier version, and the easier version would have been me trying to see how long it takes for me to draw 100 faces. But then I really was like, I don't really want to do that. So yeah. Instead, I chose to draw faces consecutively and see how that went. In the end, I do end up with 45 faces in about 3-4 hours-ish. I don't know the total timing itself. I think the first round was an hour and 45 minutes, and then the second round was about an hour and 15-ish. So, yeah. Now, let's talk about what I sort of kind of learned from doing this exercise. It's a lot. Anyone who can draw 100 faces in like a day, round of applause to you, because it's sort of kind of difficult. You need a lot of focus and you risk the possibility of getting burnt out. Now, I can probably explain why you might get this feeling, and this doesn't just relate to these challenges. It can just relate to art itself. At a certain point when you're drawing these things, or when you're drawing in general, there comes a point where you're like, it doesn't look great, and I could have done better, but I just don't have the energy to put the effort into trying again, or continuing to work on it. And that's something that I sort of faced in not just this challenge, but the previous one as well, because some faces turned out great, and other faces not so much. So it's really tricky when you want to draw, but you also feel like you're not good at drawing. There's a few, like, that's a character growth moment to sort of understand that some days you just have bad drawing days, and sometimes there are just some things that you can't draw right now. One day you'll be able to draw it as long as you practice and try your best and learn how to do whatever you're trying to draw. Like, for example, trying to draw landscapes is my Achilles heels right now, and if I put effort into it, it gets better. So it's just about doing something until you learn it. And I think that's how I felt about sort of doing the faces thing. I wasn't going to bust out 100 faces because I was like, man, this is not teaching me what I want. And the point of me, like, the day that I was drawing this, the point was to sort of learn a bit more about drawing faces and shading and how to simplify things more. And I achieved that with 45 faces. I didn't have to do 55 more faces in order to get that point across. So yeah, I just think that sometimes you need breaks. Sometimes it's about finding an efficient way to learn stuff. And that's okay to not complete 100 faces. Although I think if you accumulated everything I've done in my life, I probably have drawn 100 faces of varying detail. Now let's talk about the other thing that I've learned, aside from proportions, because I feel like you aren't here to learn those things. I hope not. But let's just talk about So other than learning proportions, another thing that was really interesting from this exercise was sort of seeing how much details you need to portray a person, what details make each and every person different, and how do you simplify a face so then you could draw these faster. Because I think roughly on average, it was like 6 minutes per face. Some took longer, some took shorter, but like an average is about that. And to do that, it's a really quick process, and you can't really put on every detail. And then on top of that, since I wasn't really blending things or having a nice gradient that you might have if you were actually to apply like a smudging brush or something, you sort of pick up different techniques to shade a face. So I stuck with the pencil brush for basically this whole thing, and it's an interesting brush. It does layer and whatnot, so that can sort of help in some ways. But for the most part, I stuck with either cell shading or hatching. Both of them are very interesting. I sort of imagine them to be like solid shading. It's like a harsh shadow or something. You're blocking in colors, so there isn't much of a gradient that is happening. And that's okay. There's just something that you have to do differently compared to if you were doing a smoother shading. That difference would be sort of knowing when to stop. I say this because if you go too far overboard, you're going to end up with a mustache or some weird like 5 o'clock shadow or something that shouldn't be there. And it's just really important when you take up either hatching, cross hatching, or cell shading to sort of just know when to stop or what details important enough to keep and what isn't so important. It's something that works not just like in general whenever you're illustrating something in an illustrative style. You sort of have to know when to reel in those details, compared to perhaps realism, where you are aiming to get as much details as you want. The other really interesting thing was sort of grasping the curvature of the mouth and also expressions, because I don't really do those very often, and sort of getting back into the swing of hair shapes. I was struggling with hair in the previous video with the art concept drawing, and yeah, hair, super important. Who would have thought? Hair does make a character too, and it sort of helps to differentiate characters whenever you get into character design and whatnot, just because it could be a very defining characteristics of like in a visual aspect that hair is very important. And also, stylized faces. As you know, I do have a style when it does come to drawing. And it was sort of neat to see how that would transfer when I was doing this project. If you didn't know, I actually used to do realism, not the greatest, because I think I was in grade 9 to maybe 12. But you know what? It was pretty good for me. And I learned a lot about keeping an eye on detail. But then it also helped me learn how to break rules, and just now I don't go as detailed as I used to in the past. Now, I'm not gonna lie, one thing, this is totally unrelated to what's going on right now on screen, but I initially did record an audio recording, but it got cut off too early. I think it was because of Audacity just not working for me. So now I'm recording in the editing software that I'm using, and it's sort of like a speech jammer because I hear what I am saying right now, and it's just like messing me up the timing of everything. So yeah, if things are going weird, it's because of that. Fun exercise, not loving hearing myself echo in the distance. The other thing I liked to do was also just, since I had all these faces just accumulated on my Pinterest board, I just sort of enjoyed going by random or going down the list and seeing like the different face rotations and head positions that I accumulated over time, and to actually draw them, because you can't learn something if you don't draw it. You can't practice if you're not practicing. Simple logic. There are no profound thoughts in this channel. Come on now. But yeah, overall, it was good. Glad to stop at 45. I don't think I would attempt a 100 face challenge because suffered once, don't need to do it again, and I did this just to learn a bit more, and also it was sort of really fun just to see where to put faces on here and just, play around with different, like, hairstyles, face shapes, head positions, and I think there are some, like, children portraits in there, which are really cute, and I don't really draw children a whole lot, so yeah, that was a fun change. Anyways, I think that is 45 faces. So these are all the heads that I've drawn that one day in like 3.5 hours-ish. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys also stay safe, stay hydrated, and just have a wonderful day. Bye.